Okay, everybody. Here we are again with another episode of the Short Fiction Side Hustle. This is number 3, and I'm here with my friend Vasha, who helps me navigate my way through these things. and today we are talking about the third story in Erikson's collection of tales, The Devil Delivered and Other Tales. This story is called "FISHIN with Grandma Matchie." Um, Another very amusing and fun to read story, I thought. What did you think, Vasha?
Yeah, it was very amusing. Suddenly, it I felt a little bit like big nose at some points, not least because I do have a big nose, but I did want the kid to shut up a little bit.
Yeah, but he definitely captured that precocious, you know, kind of that age, that precocious age where you want to, you know, all right, kid, that's enough.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. It was very cute. I loved how he like mixed the words together, kind of like I realized I thought the kid was making up words, but I realized much later that uh he was just this is how he's hearing the words, which I can say a lot of things that I misheard when I was young. So yeah, I guess it's a combination of both, maybe.
yeah, he really, um, yes, suddenizedly,
Yeah,
and
that's
stuff.
the first
Words
one.
like that were consistent throughout the whole story. And he sometimes it was definitely like a blend of two different words,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then other times it was just a extended version of a word, you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And so it was really really neat how he did that, and clever, and it just emphasized the youth viewpoint, you know,
yeah.
point of view from this kid who's, I'm not so sure he's actually a kid. Uh,
because uh because he sounds too grown up, or do you think it's
no,
that kind of story?
I think due to the mythologizing, I guess, of the story and how
Mm,
it turns into this big mythology, um,
mm,
that I'm kind of wondering if this kid is an internal kid, like because
yeah.
you find out that Grandma Matchie's been around for a very long time,
That's
and
exactly why the dad is embarrassed of over her and having her around.
yeah, and of course, we're dealing with the devil and buffalo that are as big as you know buses
Yeah.
and
Oh
what
yeah.
have you.
And they sound like two buffaloes strung together. Oh, the kid has a wild imagination.
Right, and that's it was just and it's just amusing how he continues on with his story despite getting chastised right away by his teacher, his teacher, and the principal. He's brought into the principal's office. Um, but it just made you wonder. All this stuff is happening. He's telling these stories, and he's and he creates this whole mythology out of his family, I guess. And so you're like, okay, he's obviously he has got a wild imagination, or does he? You know.
Mm. This it remind me of, I don't remember specifically which movies, but sometimes they show kids and how they think with little cartoons in the background and like really exaggerated versions of things. Uh, it reminded me a little bit like that. Like I could imagine this whole thing as a cartoon, and
Yeah,
it would make sense.
it would make perfect sense. Yeah. And yeah, so it was really cool how he put it all together, and it was just funny. It was fun. Uh, I love how right off the bat we're getting, he's talking about the first day of school and his assignments, and he's trying to explain why his story is the way it is, and he
Yeah,
says, he says, he's talking about his summer vacation, and he says he has to tell you about the first and second weeks because you see that's the only way to unravel fishing line. And so he's equating it to unraveling fishing line because you can't just jump ahead. Otherwise, you'll just have knots and stuff like that. And it just kind of reminds me of Erikson's storytelling in general. If
mm,
you think about Malazan, Malazan, and how much you have to unravel as the story goes on.
mm,
And he mentions something. He says, and that's not the only reason. Sometimes the bigness of things is so big, you just got to be prepared before you run into it. And that
yeah,
kind of that seems to me to speak Malazan right there. You know,
yeah. I like that. Yeah, I didn't think of that, but that is a great thought.
yeah. So I think he has a little commentary in there about getting into stories and
Mm,
you know especially his.
yeah. Also, because bigness leads to the truth, and truth's important. If you don't know what I mean, then I'll show you just like this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very, very, very much so. Yeah. So fun stuff. And then yeah, and as we're going along, we get into this wild mythology that he's making up with all this stuff about Grandma Matchie and all the things she's encountered and the beginnings of buffaloes and the beginnings of fish, and some of the fish are a little more than fish, and it's
Yeah.
just crazy, crazy
and
stuff.
and how long she has lived, and uh and how long the major is apparently, uh
Mm.
and some of the stuff that the kid doesn't understand, but we know what's going on sometimes, like the relationship between the grandma and the major. I guess he was her ex-husband, or at least the father of
Mm.
her daughter. So yeah, it was pretty amusing that it yeah, it's a very hyper imaginative child, alongside some things that I guess children just tend to do. They talk about stuff they notice without fully understanding it, but everybody else knows what the heck is going on.
Yeah, like when he says he could feel his face starting to scratch, which
Yeah.
which is like combination of scrunch up and
Yeah.
something like that. Uh, and that's when Grandma Matchy told him he's got the itch. He didn't understand what that meant, but he was still embarrassed by it
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder so okay, if Grandma Machi is real, fine. We don't have to explain anything. But if the kid is imagining it, he's probably using stuff that he heard from other places and having Grandma Machi say them, right? So yeah, the quote unquote real parts of the story are interesting. What they are born out of. The
Yeah,
craziness can kind of get, I guess, the canoe with the hole. Look down at the footsteps through the hole.
yep, yeah, it's great stuff. Uh, I'm trying to think of what else he brings up in here, because they have a couple of adventures where they have to go see the lunker, I guess. I'm trying to remember who that was. That was oh,
The
what was the
bunker?
lunker? The lunker, yeah.
Oh
Wait,
yeah,
they
that's the
wait.
mother of the other guy they kept chasing, the one-armed trapper.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was amusing how the like she was antagonistic towards the one-armed trapper, and then at one point they kind of worked together
Yeah.
afterwards, uh, and and it was just it was funny how those relationships worked, and how he was able to explain it in that kid-like manner
Mm.
that
Yeah.
it was, yeah, that's just the way it is. There's nothing irregular here at all.
Yeah. Did did this feel like it read at sort of a breakneck pace or like a really breathtaking pace, but not in the usual action sequence kind of way? It's kind of like when a kid is talking really fast, he's barely breathing, but he wants to get through the story. I got that kind of sense from this. So yeah, that was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
absolutely, yeah, because that's how kids tell stories. They
Yeah.
they tell them with that out of breath type
Yeah.
excitement, and,
Barely finishing
and
the last sentence before getting into the next one.
exactly, yeah, and that's how I felt. I had to read it that way almost, like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, okay, okay," and then, like, there's no breaks for, like, these big breaks for, like, scenery and stuff,
Mm,
and, like, traveling, and the journey and type, like, stuff like that, 'cause, kids, they don't
yeah.
get into that stuff, that's the boring parts, and so, it was just this
Yeah.
constant hustle of, "Yeah, yeah, and then."
When when there is description, it's interwoven into something somewhat unrelated. So it's yeah, like it doesn't have to make sense, the
Mhm.
order in which things are being told. And this feeling of the kid sort of making it up as he went along as well. which yeah at, which again like took me a little time to sort of adjust to, because the way it started I thought, oh, magical realism maybe, and I didn't register that the kid was only 9 years old. I thought maybe a little bit older. But um yeah, it was when the moment when Grandma March, we are told that she lives underwater, and she emerges from the water, making a V shape out of it. Oh, what an image! um, so I thought maybe it's some sort of like magical realism. It reminded me a little bit of like Water for Chocolate, but yeah, then I quickly realized that it's, oh, actually just a kid's wild imagination. Maybe. I mean, it could very well be magical realism too.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause, he does, you can see some of, in the mythology, you see some of Erikson's interest in,
Mm,
Native American Indian, culture thrown into there,
yeah.
especially with the buffaloes, and especially Canadian focused,
Mm.
viewpoints, with the Canada's finest crayfish wine and stuff like that. Um, and, there was, so there was a lot of that mythology, uh, I think it was kinda bred into his upbringing. He must have, like, been hearing about these things as he was growing up, and this wild type of mythology where animals can talk, and then and they're kinda demigods of some sort,
Mm,
or spirits, powerful
yeah.
spirits of some sort, um, and they take part in, humanity, and they interact with humanity, and they're very, it's very tied together,
Mm,
but yet it also brings in the devil, so there's that,
yeah.
um, intruding influence of the Christian mythology with the devil, and
Mm,
it had um, that feel that the devil is, trying to interfere with the original mythology that they knew and grew up with, in a similar way that Christianity interfered with, American Indian culture as well. And I thought that was it's just very little subtle stuff like that that they got to
Yeah.
fight the devil in that manner. And I thought it was wonderful how he pulled it off.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I didn't think of that. That's really nice. There's also, I guess, uh saying that he's influenced by the devil when because of the way he uses his imagination, I suppose, a little bit of the whole school like what the refusing to, like, I don't know, like it's making me think of the stuff that happen around the Harry Potter books sometimes, okay, talking about uh reading about magic is not good or whatever. I
Mhm.
remember there was a particular opposition from some Christian groups on those books. So uh, yeah, it reminded me of that too.
Sure.
Not the wild imagination of the kid is influenced by the devil too, right?
Yeah, right. How can you think such thoughts? You
Yeah.
must right.
Clearly.
And yeah, and so I thought it was I just thought it was really cool how he tied all that together and really gave us a taste of how a kid brought up in such a manner could interpret all that stuff
Mm,
into if he had the wild imagination that this kid seemed to have.
yeah.
And it was and that was pretty cool. And I liked the little and there was a little Canadian dig here. There was um because I think this takes place mostly in Manitoba or
Mm,
somewhere in those regions, which is kind of towards the west of Canada.
mm.
And there was a little dig towards a little Canadian joke. Dad couldn't was having trouble putting the jacuzzi instructions together because the instructions were all in French, and that's just like a little poke at the French, the Quebec side of it with the
Mm.
French separatists and stuff like that, and so he puts little cultural stuff like that in there too. That's
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, that's funny. Speaking of the jacuzzi, the number of things that the father apparently does inside the house or in the living room, that, that was hilarious. He's fishing from there. He's got the jacuzzi going on and watching TV right from the living room. There was something else. Oh yeah, and when the mother's asked to bring the canoe out, she brings it into the house.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Supposedly, supposedly all these things happen, but it could just be how it all looks to the kid for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like, going back to the mythology thing, he the, um the major, uh, was saying he went, like, 20th time around the world or something like that when
Mm.
he was looking for that pike, that big fish,
Yeah.
and, and, he, he says, "Yeah, that's all I seem to our body's hot as rock and as far across as the Kalahari Sea." And they say,
Mm.
"But the Kalahari is a desert." He's like, "Not after we went through it," you know? I'm just like, "Oh, okay, so that's how the desert was created, okay." Just a little side mythological thing about how the desert was created in Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing about the cosmic, it wasn't cosmic rays, it was cosmic energy. I don't remember what she called it, but it was cosmic something or the other. And Grandma Machi was soaking it up and making things glow. And the footprints that he saw of the one-armed trapper, those glowed through, glowed too through the hole in the canoe.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, wonderful imagery and stuff like that
Yeah.
that he uses, and it's just, I just really enjoyed all those sections of it because
Yeah.
I really kind of like that. Um, because so many mythologies are so dramatic and serious, you know, and this
Yeah.
was just all of this was just um, amusing stuff that still mentions the mythology, but doesn't take it all too seriously, and it really allows you to have fun with it,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
lines like fishing for buffalo is dangerous business, it's like, well, yeah.
You don't say. Yeah. It was Cosmic Wind, by the way.
Oh,
Mm,
cosmic wind, yeah.
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 Yeah. The what? Or the guy, the one-armed trapper wears shoes as big as a sports car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And the way he does numbers too, the kid, like he mixes words up together, but also numbers. I looked 11 million feet and thousand, whatever, like, just bringing numbers together to make them really big. Their understanding of what big is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and who hasn't heard a kid say stuff like that
Yeah.
when they're trying to explain a story, so that's just perfectly fits with how
Yeah.
he captured this child's imagination.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And it was a pretty interesting theme going on with, well, especially with the one-armed trapper when, he tricked the major and Grandma Matchie, and he's trying to get all the stories to himself. Like
Mm,
stories are an important thing and they're a currency of sorts.
yeah. Yeah.
And I like that theme because it's kinda what is happening with the kid, Jock Jr., who
Yeah.
he was called at some point, um, where it's kinda ties into him telling his story to, Big Nose and the principal, and, of course, them just shooting it down, as if it's not real and it's not important, and that is exactly what One Armed Trapper is trying to do by
Mm,
capturing the stories and having them all to himself. And then now this would be, my story will be the only one. My power will be complete. You get the evil laugh going on,
nice. Yeah.
and I like how he tied that theme together.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't um yeah, and it makes sense that sort of the grandma is who he does all this with, and the grandma is who he wants to do the stealing from, because kids are uh typically told stories by their grandmother, I guess, or grandparents perhaps. I was. Uh yeah, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a common theme in stories is when the grandparents tell the stories and they act, and they relate to the kids in the kids' viewpoint more
Mm,
than the parents do.
yeah.
We've
Yeah.
seen that a lot in fiction and movies and everything else, and so this is the perfect example of that. This whole story here,
Yep.
uh, so it's pretty fun. Yeah, and I like his at the end he talks about he said his dad was a great teacher. Um,
Yeah.
because he knows the difference between doing things the wrong way and doing things his way,
His way.
not the right way, his way.
That's I don't know if the kid knows it, but that's deep.
Exactly. It's very deep, and then he goes on to tell us about Tarzan and
Yeah.
the TV show, and you
That's
know
how his dad would run the education system.
right, and he goes, "Now that's education." Tarzan, that's education, just watching that show. Not the school stuff he's going to.
Yeah.
But I think there's a point there in that the education system sometimes can be too rigid in what it's trying to
Mm.
teach kids rather
Yeah.
than letting kids use their imagination as part of an education. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of the point there, you know?
Yeah. Like that interaction with the guy who gave him a special test. I thought for a long time that, well, not for a long time, for as long as the section lasted, I was unclear whether he was exasperated at the answers the kid has given, or if it was the because he's proved himself to be so smart, he can't imagine anybody being quite this smart. I'm guessing it's a combination of both. Like, and I did think that he was probably very, very amused, or um I guess flabbergasted might be the right word, at the answers that the kid had given them. Jock Jr., sorry, I'll stop calling him the kid. But they, like the bit about the Rocky Mountains. and and his question, "If Rocky Mountains aren't from buffalo poop?" Like that very innocent question. Reminded me of the time my nephew went, 1,000 into 1,000 is not 1,000.
Yeah,
How do you break the kid's heart?
yeah, what do you mean it's not buffalo poop? What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, that's great
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and
Oh,
Grandma Machi told him the answers. And the way that starts to, he says, "Okay, who gave you the answers to these questions?" And you think, oh, somebody wanted him to pass this smartness test, and so they made him like pre-learn the answers just
right, right.
specifically. And it's like, let me tell you, they are wrong.
Yep. Oh, man, and it's like and I love how he leads you into the next section with those little titles he puts in,
Mm,
and
yeah.
he tells the guy, um, "I'll tell you what Satan himself looks like too, and you can't stop me." Then the title for the next section is, "And he couldn't stop me," and it was really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Those
I
were
was
funny too.
laughing out loud a few times.
Yep. The titles sounded a lot more grown up than the rest of the sections, but they had to be well thought out because the titles are important, as he points out in the first chapter.
Yeah. I think he also pointed out that his grandma helped him with the bigger titles,
Yeah,
but
the ones about the whole week.
yeah,
What on earth is an Adam's egg?
Adam's egg, I'm not sure.
Okay, just something
Uh,
that Jock Jr. made up.
where was that?
The bit about, let's see. Oh, and the way he kept hearing swear words, or just swearing in general. Whenever I'm guessing someone said "God damn," he kept hearing "gothic." Apparently,
Oh, yep, Gothic on a stick.
yeah. Okay, let's see. So she says, "Oh, oh yeah." She says titles. Okay, it's explained right here. I. She says titles are important, and that's the way they've done things since Adam first broke the egg.
Ah,
I'm not sure what that means unless it's that all those titles fell out when Adam broke the egg. Personally, I don't think there's an egg in existence that could hold all the world's titles. Because if there was, who laid it? And where does she live? And what does she eat? And does she ever visit Sunbury? And if she did, then why?
yeah, that's right. That's great because that just, because it's funny because he's being asked questions about, what he did during the summer vacation and stuff like that,
Mm.
and he's giving all these great answers, true or not, but he's giving all these great answers, but he also shown with the Adam egg question, he also has a lot of great questions,
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
well, how's that possible? And this and
Mm.
this and that, And so you wonder at this age he's at, when did he ask the questions to get the answers he does have now?
Mm.
And I think there's like a kind of a cyclical uh, process going on there,
Yeah.
and how we're never too old to ask questions,
Mm.
and wonder about things. And I think that's a really good, important theme he includes.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So super fun story. I wanted to show the original cover that this novella came with. Has a kind of a. I think he's got a little fishing pole in that picture with the two people far off in the distance. So I'm
Mm.
imagining that's Jock Jr. and Grandma Matchie walking to go fishing. It looks like this very pastoral, calm scene. Like a touching scene between maybe a kid and his grandmother, and of course, what we get is completely wild and chaotic, but kind
Yeah. Yeah.
of funny. But that was the original cover. I think this was written in 2005, along with the actual Devil Delivered story. Um, and So that was yeah. So that's pretty cool. It's a neat little novella cover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Good.
but we have now finished off this
Yes, we have.
this lovely collection. Um, I don't know about you, but this is probably going to be on my top 10 list for books of the year.
Very nice. It hasn't quite made it there yet, but it's certainly one of my favorites for the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. So anything else we got last thoughts?
Oh, I wanted to ask you. I want to ask you to rank the stories, but tell me which one your favorite was.
Wow. Wow. That's tough.
Mm.
I think I think I think Revolvo was my favorite.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I think
think
it
that
might be
was
mine too.
yeah.
The the Devil Delivered is more reminiscent of the stuff I liked about Erikson in Malazan, uh, but Revolver was just too hilarious, not to
Oh,
be
yeah.
my favorite story.
It is. It really is. And I just love all the commentary on the arts in general that he has in Revolvo, and I really
Mm.
like that. And it was just hilarious. And Revolvo and this one, Fishing with Grandma Matchie, remind me more of his humor,
Mm.
especially with the Bacalane and Corporal Brooch novellas,
Mhm,
which
mhm,
are very humorous at times. And so those two stories reminded me of those specifically from Malazan. Whereas, like you said, The Devil Delivered reminded me more of his more serious side. Um, Although there was a little bit of humor in there too, but there's humor sprinkled throughout Malazan
yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah.
um, he definitely maintains that sense of humor with these stories, and I think with the last two, kind of pushes it up a notch.
Yeah, yeah. This this one was very interesting, certainly, uh, is style the right thing to say? Like, stylistically, and yeah, it's sort of like this it has all the tones of a run-on sentence, but it's not because a
Mhm.
child is supposedly writing all of this with all his
Yeah,
poor spellings. That's why Big Nose was annoyed at him, not because not because of the imagination, it was because of all the misspellings. She's just a misunderstood teacher.
Sympathy for Big Nose. All right. That's great.
It's
Yeah,
not all because I was teased for a big nose.
oh, that's not fair. But, yeah, that's that's
All
funny.
right.
But yeah, but he like, I think it's funny because you can recognize Erikson's in the writing, but you also see it how he was able to really capture that point of view
Yeah, yeah.
in a unique manner. That's not, like, you don't have um, that point of view style in any of the Malazan stuff, really. Everything's so unique,
Mm,
and it just shows that he can really bring forward unique characters, and he doesn't really repeat himself,
mm.
too
Yeah,
much, so it's just
yeah,
amazing that he can pull it off.
yeah. I love how different every single one of these stories
Yeah,
were from Malazan. It's not doing more of the same. It's
right.
so different. If I didn't know he wrote them, I wouldn't have guessed that it was
Yeah,
by the same author.
yeah, and
In
they're
fact,
different
even
from
the
each
three
other.
stories, I wouldn't have guessed
Yeah,
they were by
right.
the same author. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, very cool,
yeah,
very cool.
yeah. It was a very fun experience. So thank you for having me along for the ride.
Alright, well, that's, we're not gonna stop here, folks. Our next collection will be Reeve the Just and Other
Very
Tales
nice.
by Stephen Donaldson, so we'll start on in the first story in that collection for our next episode, which will be the story called Reeve the Just. So it starts off with the title story. Um, and so I'll be announcing that pretty soon for next month, sometime next year. Wow, the year's
Yes,
over already.
next year. Oh no. You know why this is, right? This is because you keep posting those monthly wrap up thingies. Not wrap up, you call them something else, but it's because you post them that the time moves the way it does, Jared, so fast.
Oh, okay. I have the
So your
power of time. All right, I didn't know
All right.
that. Uh, it's good to know. All right. So there's our mythology for today. I control time, and Vasha controls all our reading habits. So there.
That's not mythology, that's just fact.
All right. So, uh, anybody interested in joining us for reading along here for Reeve the Just and Other Tales by Stephen Donaldson, let me know, and we will try to accommodate. And with all that said, Vasha, uh, where can we find you?
Oh, on the YouTube channel, Reading by the Rainy Mountain, on the podcast Speculative Speculations, which maybe you've heard about, Jared. And yeah, I guess on Steve's podcast sometimes it's called Page Chewing.
Excellent. And yeah, I'm in all those places too, I think. So, as always, people, be good to each other, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.